Good morning and welcome. We're excited that you're joining us today for our 2022 mission recap of our youth summer mission trip to Denver, Colorado. Today's theme is As Far as the Eye Can See. We'll focus on how sometimes what we see at first glance isn't always accurate, how God has the ability to change our perspectives and our minds through new experiences, and how our youth and our leaders learn new things about themselves and God through their summer mission trip to Denver, Colorado.
The Old Testament lesson for today comes from Isaiah 42:14-21. Thus says the Lord, for a long time I have held my peace. I have kept still and restrained myself. Now I will cry out like a woman in labor. I will gasp and pant. I will lay waste the mountains and hills and dry up all their herbage. I will turn rivers into islands and dry up the pools. I will lead the blind by the road they do not know, and the paths they have not known, I will guide them. I will turn the darkness before them into light, the rough places into level ground. These are the things I will do, and I will not forsake them. They shall be turned back and utterly put to shame, those who trust in carved images, who say to them, you are our gods. Listen, you are not deaf, and you are not blind. Look up and see. Who is blind but my servant, or deaf like my messenger whom I send? Who is blind like my dedicated one, or blind the servant of the Lord? He sees many things, but he does not observe them. His ears are open, but he does not hear. The Lord was pleased for the sake of his righteousness, and to magnify his teacher and make it glorious. The second lesson for today comes from 1 John 2:7-11. Dear friends, I'm not writing a new commandment for you. Rather, it is an old one that you have had from the very beginning. This old commandment, to love one another, is the same message you have heard before, yet it is also new. Jesus lived the truth of this commandment, and you are also living in it. For the darkness is disappearing, and the true light is already shining. If anyone claims, I am living in the light, but hates a Christian brother or sister, that person is still living in the darkness. Anyone who loves another brother or sister is living in the light and does not cause others to stumble. But anyone who hates another brother or sister is still living and walking in darkness. Such a person does not know the way to go and have been blinded by the darkness. The gospel lesson comes from Mark 8:22-26. When they arrived at Bethsaida, some people brought a blind man to Jesus. They begged him to touch the man and heal him. Jesus took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. Then, spitting on the man's eyes, he laid his hands on him and asked, Can you see anything now? The man looked around. Yes, he said, I see people, but I can't see them very clearly. They look like trees walking around. Then Jesus placed his hands on the man's eyes again, and his eyes were opened. His sight was completely restored, and he could see everything clearly. Jesus sent him away, saying, Don't go back into the village on your way home.
A few weeks back, on July 15th, we stood in this room in a big circle for the parents to bless their students as they prepared to leave the next day for our trip to Denver. The parent blessing was different this time, though. And that's because it was Dylan's first trip, our oldest. It was cool to get to have him along with us finally this year. So for our blessing, Sarah and I chose a verse, as all the parents do, and a gift of a pineapple for Dylan. Sarah got to totally geek out on connecting this verse with pineapples. So ask her about it sometime if you want to hear more about it. But Dylan, now it's your dad's turn to geek out a bit on photography. So before me, I have 4 of my Canon lenses. It's a lot of glass. They're precision pieces of photography equipment, and they all have individual uses. In case this is new to you, let me give you a quick rundown. The smaller the number, the wider the angle is that you can use to capture a scene. The larger the number, that one provides a narrow field of vision. If you move from, say, a 50 millimeter lens to a 200 millimeter lens, you're effectively doing what most people would call zooming in on your scene. So the 24 is the widest prime lens I have. It allows me to include large crowds of people, vast scenery, large objects, and tight spaces. My 100 millimeter is one of my favorite lenses. When I photograph people, such as high school seniors, I like to isolate the subject from the background. The senior should be the focal point, and this lens helps me make that happen. I more recently acquired this 200 millimeter lens. This one is a favorite that I like to use for weddings. I absolutely love to focus on all the details. After all, brides and grooms spend months and even years planning their weddings and all of the individual aspects of their day. Last but not least, my 50 millimeter. It's a workhorse. I use it in almost every photo shoot. So experts actually say that this is the closest focal length to the human eye's visual attention range. In other words, it doesn't account for our peripheral vision. It also recreates the most accurate proportions when photographing people's features. It's also the smallest and most affordable here. One thing to note about these is that these are called prime lenses. These lenses do not zoom in or out. They're a fixed focal length. This requires me, as a photographer, to move around more to get the shot I'm looking for. These lenses are built to be the very best at their set focal length. The flip side is the limitation, though. As a photographer, I must stop and consider which of these focal lengths will be best for the shot I'm preparing for. I'm not always prepared with the right lens. Sometimes I might even doubt my choice. I might be photographing a bride and her dad during the father-daughter dance with my 200 millimeter lens. And this lens will capture the sparkle of that wedding ring, the smiles they share as they navigate the dance floor, but it's so focused on those details, it'll miss what's outside the frame. Maybe the mother of the bride who's shedding a tear while watching her husband dance with their little girl. These 4 lenses provide a different perspective. To give you an idea just how different your perspective can be with these lenses, here's some examples. Here's one for the 24 millimeter, and then we'll switch to the 50 millimeter, and then the 100 millimeter, and the 200 millimeter. So we did not move the camera or the person being photographed at all. It gives you a different idea about how perspective comes into play here. Perspectives are important. It's also important to realize there's always more than one perspective. As with photography, we might be missing something if we've only ever viewed things through one lens. Our readings today provide us a glimpse into a few different scenarios where a different perspective is shown. In Mark's gospel, a blind man was brought to Jesus, and they begged Jesus to heal him. Jesus led the man out of the village. He spit on his eyes. He laid his hands on him, and then he asked him if he could see. The man replied, "I see people, but I can't see them very clearly. They look like trees walking around." What? Do I need to clean this lens up a little bit here? What's going on? Was Jesus feeling a little rusty? The disciples accidentally brewed decaf that morning instead of the good stuff. Jesus could have easily provided him with clear vision right away, without spit, speaking, or any physical action at all. I don't know about you, I honestly felt a little uneasy reading this one about how he wasn't healed on the first go-around. I mean, come on, Jesus. As I was diving into this reading, I was actually amazed to realize that this particular miracle is the only one recorded in the Bible that is progressive in nature, meaning he provided partial healing with his first touch and total healing with his second. Jesus used this opportunity to provide perspectives for this man and his faith. Most biblical scholars believe this man didn't come to Jesus by his own doing to be healed. He likely believed he couldn't be healed, he wasn't worthy of being healed, or this man named Jesus wouldn't be able to heal him at all. But Jesus led him away from the crowds, including from those who had brought him to Jesus. Jesus narrowed his perspective at that moment for this one man in need, so this man could broaden his perspective, both visually and spiritually. After a glimpse of hope, His faith quickly grew, and by the grace of God, his full vision was restored after Jesus' second touch. His perspective was forever changed. He quite literally was given new lenses. By now, you're probably wondering what all this has to do with us going to Denver. After all, the people that left with glasses still wear them. I mean, no one was expecting miracles, right? But maybe we should. Maybe Jesus isn't restoring our vision all at once. Actually, I've seen these small miracles on our mission trips, more than once, and even for myself. I remember my first trip to San Diego in 2011, and honestly, like a couple of our youth this year, I wasn't sure I wanted to go. Much like the man in our gospel reading, I was invited along, figuratively and figuratively speaking, I had no idea where we were heading or what I was in for. Not only was I nervous to be helping lead a group of mostly middle schoolers over 1,200 miles from home to serve alongside people I didn't know, but I wasn't sure I was cut out for it. After the 2 days of travel and 4 days of service, I was leaving San Diego looking through a different lens. Honestly, I felt great about the trip, the work we did, and what I was able to contribute. I did kind of wish they had let me help them create some efficiencies in their work. After all, operations management was one of my favorite classes at Concordia. A year later, though, in San Francisco, God made things even a bit more clear to me. I learned that to truly serve, you have to take a step back. I had to listen to the stories, see the struggles, and humbly ask how I could help. These trips are not about a hero mentality, not at all. We aren't coming in to save the day. We're actually there to listen, to learn, and stand shoulder to shoulder with those already doing the work that God has placed before them. No one ever came to me on that trip to devise a solution or wanted my answers to their questions. They simply invited us to be a part of the ways they were serving their community. Now, I don't doubt that we had an impact on the communities we served, but I feel we bring much more home than we ever leave there. So I came home with yet another lens, another perspective, another glimpse into how Jesus set an example for us. A few people from this trip to Denver wanted to share ways they had a change in perspective. So let's listen to what they have to say.
Hi, my name's Burfinger. This was my 4th mission trip. Something that changed on this mission trip is my ideas and thoughts when it comes to prayer. During the parent blessing, my mom kept praying for patience for me on this trip because she knows that that's something that I struggle with. And then as the trip started and we were packing up, I also started praying for patience for myself. Often in my life, forever, little things happen and I'm like, oh, that person did this, that person did that. Oh, this small inconvenience is affecting me. And those little things just keep jabbing at my patience because I have very little patience to give out. So throughout this trip, little things like that would happen. And I often would go, oh, God, give me some patience. Help me become more patient as a human and be more patient with the people around me. And I kept praying for this over and over again. And then finally around the 3rd or 4th day, as I was showering at the shower sites, I came out of the shower and I was all clean and I was relaxed after a long day of serving, and I realized, I haven't been using any of these opportunities that God has been giving me to grow my patience. I had just been sitting there praying for patience, thinking it would magically just be blessed upon me and I would just turn into the world's most patient human, which is not how things work. And that's when I realized this whole time I had been praying for patience, thinking that God wasn't giving me any, when he had already answered my prayers and he had given me multiple opportunities to grow that patience and to give me opportunities to become more patient with humans around me and more patient with myself. And instead of taking those opportunities, I was like, where's my patience, God? Why isn't my patience coming? But the whole time it actually had come. And so that's when it hit me, and I was like, you can't just pray for things and expect for everything to just magically wake up and change the next day. It's an effort that you have to put into, and you have to put in the work and grow yourself just as much. So that's one way my perspective has changed.
So throughout the trip, my perspective changed by all the new people that we met, and specifically the people that we served. It was really cool to communicate and interact with people that we could serve after not serving for so long, especially us during COVID, sitting in our own shell and not going out and taking the time to meet new people, serve new people, and all those kinds of things. It really brought us out and pushed us out of our comfort zone, which was really cool because you don't really realize how much you enjoy something until you're pushed to do it. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, and it changed my perspective by giving me a new look at the people that needed help. It made me realize how much I had and how much I should be grateful for.
Hi, my name is Philemon. This is my third mission trip. And going on all these mission trips before, I really thought this mission trip wouldn't be any different. I've gone on 2 others, and every single one has been, other than the first one, has been like pretty much the same. And I haven't really felt any different. And I've been on like tons of other trips where we did like similar things. So this trip didn't feel like it'd be any other different. It seemed like it'd be, the same sort of thing. We just go serve, you learn about God for a bit, and yeah, obviously, you're learning about God, but other than that, I didn't feel like it would affect me that much. And then Thursday comes by, and that's foot washing night. Foot washing is where all the leaders, they wash the students' feet, and they act like Jesus didn't wash his disciples' feet, same sort of thing. So on that night, as they're washing my feet, I'm like thinking back, and Sarah says, "Oh, the first time I met you was all those years ago in the printer room, back when we used to lead the church here, and when we used to lead our church here, and we were just sitting there in that room, all on our iPads." And I thought about that, and it was fourth grade. That was almost a decade ago, or it was a decade ago actually, and like it felt so surreal. Like all these years, I didn't think much of it, but up until that moment, I didn't realize how much of an impact all this had on me. And I really thought I'd come out with this with nothing, but it turns out these mission trips, and especially this one, gave me a lot and brought me a lot, because I learned to truly appreciate everything, and I thought I wouldn't miss anything as I moved away for college. I thought it would just be another thing, there's no attachment to anything, but I think I really am attached, and it'll be different not going on these mission trips ever again, and I think I will really miss everything that happened, everything that we've been through.
Hi there, I'm Sarah Eustace Brown, and this was my 10th mission trip. Something that I've realized long before this trip is regardless of how many trips I go on, there's always something new to learn about myself or about God or about other people. So how God changed my perspective on this trip involved someone named Tony. And we met him literally the first seconds that we pulled up to the church that we were staying at. So there was a parking lot across the street, which is where we were supposed to unload our stuff, but Tim checked with the youth work staff and said, "Hey, can we just pull up in front of the church so we don't have to haul it across this road?" They said, "Sure, go ahead, no problem." So we're parked there unloading, and here comes Tony. I don't even know his name at this point, never met him, and he goes, "Oh, aren't we special?" And my first response was, "Yeah, we are, thanks." So already right out the gate, I just was not feeling the vibe of this guy. So the week progresses, and we just have more of these negative interactions where he would appear at random times and pop into conversations he wasn't a part of or give his unsolicited opinion on what we're doing. And every time I just found myself getting irritated and often just kind of snapping back with something smart. And we talk about this in church group time where I'm like, man, like this is really a problem. I need to just keep my mouth closed and just figure out how to get along with this person. And I would just kind of ruminate on these negative interactions with him. And if you're anything like me, for some reason, we really want to talk about our negative things about other people. We spend a lot of time, oh, they're so annoying, and then they said this, and can you believe that? But as the week progressed, how my perspective changed was Tony was actually the one that came to each of us youth leaders and said, these youth work staff, they don't get paid much, and I think we should show our appreciation by all pooling our money so that they could go have a nice dinner. So there's one time where I'm like, you know what? Despite our interactions and not getting along, this person has a generous, thoughtful spirit. The second time was when one of his youth named Drake got sick during the trip and couldn't stop throwing up. They took him into urgent care. They had to get him prescriptions, anti-nausea pills, trying to help. And finally they made the decision, like, this kid needs to go home. We're gonna have to fly him home. The situation that was Drake's mom could not afford to fly him home. In fact, she could not even afford his $53 prescription, which I found out from her one day when we were both getting ready together in the ladies' room and started talking. And Tony was the one that gave up all of his air miles to fly this kid home. And so in those moments where you have this person that's frustrating and you're focused on their negative qualities, to remember people that we don't get along with, they're not all bad. They have really positive things about them. And like I said, why is it that we spend so much time talking about their negatives, but we don't spend that equal amount of time talking up their positives? You know, Tony's so generous, and Tony gave up his airline miles, and do you want to hear what Tony did? Instead, we go, oh my gosh, Tony's being annoying, or Tony said something rude. And so how my perspective changed was, what would happen if I spent more time, or the same amount of time even, really talking up the positives with people instead of focusing on their negative. And I think God is showing me that even the people that frustrate you, they have a lot to offer, and there's more to them than just those annoying interactions or things that bother you. They're complex, layered people with a lot of good. And if you spend more time talking about their good, it might change your perspective on them as a person as a whole.
Hello, my name is Dylan Brown, and this is my first mission trip. I thought this mission trip was going to be a struggle for me because I thought that people wouldn't want to get to know me, and that they wouldn't want to go out of their comfort zones to take the time to become friends and really socialize with me. So this all changed when we first got on our car trip. We started off, and I was in the back seat with two other guys, and I know them pretty well, but of course they're seniors and I'm a middle schooler, so I'm like, why would they want any part with me? Well, that changed when I started to talk to them, and I realized that I really had fun with them, and I like to get to know them, and they like to hear my stories. So when I realized this, I realized that maybe I should start to be more open, and it's not always it was other people's faults, it was more of mine, and that I hadn't been getting out there to know other people, and they had tried to get to know me, but I had refused to let them know me. So this trip has really helped me to come out of my comfort zone and to express who I am to people and to show them who I truly am and not holding back my emotions and feelings, and to really get out there where I don't usually like to be. I'm very introverted, so when I hang around extroverted people, it helps me to bring out the best qualities in me. So it really helped me to bring out the fun, lively person that's behind the wall that I put up to hide myself and keep myself safe. But after all of it, and I came back, I realized that I should really get to know people instead of having them get to know me. And it's been, I feel like, not as bad as I thought it would be in the past. And I'm excited for the next mission trip when I can really maybe get a new perspective on different things.
As we served in Denver, we did some self-reflecting. We spoke to each other about ways we might be blind to our own actions and how they might affect others. We prayed for help to change our perspectives and subsequently our actions so that we might better serve those around us. We prayed that God would help us put these into practice back home. Our students have chosen to share some of the things they have been blind to and the ways they're asking God to help them in the future.
Sometimes I'm blind to heavenly treasures. Jesus helps me to see they are more valuable than material treasures.
I'm blind to jealousy. Jesus helped me to see ways to be content. Sometimes I'm blind to the impact I could have on the world. Jesus, please help me to see the gifts you've given me.
Sometimes I'm blind to the things that others need. Jesus, help me to see that my wants are not as important.
Sometimes I'm blind to other people's worth. Jesus, help me see their value.
Sometimes I'm blind to compassion. Jesus, help me to see how to love others.
Sometimes I'm blind to the effect of my actions. Jesus, help me to see the urgency to change.
Jesus is inviting you to see things through a new lens. As you leave today, we invite you to pause this video. Fill in these blanks on your screen for yourself. Take some time to ponder things you might be blind to in your own life and what you might ask God to help give you a new perspective on. May God help you see His perspectives a little clearer each day. Amen.